Welcome to another edition of Ori Lifestyle Inclusive Beauty Podcast. My name is Titi Bello, and today I have a namesake, Tayo Bello and Funmi Akomu. But before I really go into introducing them, this is the first episode that I think I have to give a little bit of context into why I'm doing this episode. If you're familiar with my brand at all, you will know that culture plays a huge role in what I stand for. An understanding of our culture, an appreciation of our culture, and linked to that, of course, identity. One of the things that I really am keen to address and to maybe, in a sense, redress is some of the misconceptions that we have around African spirituality, African culture, because I think it's so much very linked to our identity. And I think I've come through a journey myself from my younger days being told that everything African spirituality was demonic or devilish to now really going on a quest to understand what African spirituality is about, understanding that belief. And now I think I've arrived at a place where I respect it as a religion of its own. The same way I respect Islam, the same way I respect Christianity, the same way I respect Hindus and other religions of the world, I now respect the African spirituality. Today we're going to be delving into Yoruba, but it's not really just about the Yoruba culture and philosophy. It is about the African culture and philosophy. So this is applicable even if you're Igbo. It's applicable if you are not any of the Yoruba tribes. So if you're from Togo, which one of my guests is half Togolese, or if you're even from the Caribbean and other countries around the Caribbean who have their own spiritual beliefs as well. So before we start, one thing I want you to do is to stay open-minded, suspend your judgment, approach this as an opportunity to learn, and then make your own informed decision afterwards. So without much ado, I have with me an esteemed guest, somebody who I absolutely love and watch his Instagram page religiously. His name is Tayo Bello. He is a creative storyteller. He's a linguist, in my opinion. He's also a historian. He might not agree with some of these labels, but I'm going to let him introduce himself. But that's how I see him, as a linguist, a historian, advocate of the cultural importance of language, of spirituality, and of beliefs. And tied into that, of course, identity. And I have Funmi with me. Many of you already know her. She's a dear friend. But Funmi is wearing her Christianity hat on this episode today. So I think that between us, we're going to have a really lively conversation. But I'm going to pass on to Tayo and let him actually introduce himself as he sees himself.
Thank you very much. My name is Temitayo Bello, known as Washere on social media. And I think I have the calling of making sure the Yoruba culture is brandished in a way that should be appealing to everybody with a open mind, everybody with sense, basically. So that is just it. That's what I've devoted my life to. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Fumilayo Akomu, and I'm here, yes, wearing a Christian hat. I am a proud Christian, but also very much a proud Yoruba girl.
Yeah. Thank you. I think I want to start, Tayo, with the names. The name of my brand is Ori Lifestyle. And I decided to call it Ori because it means head. And we cater to hair care products. But I also decided to call it Ori because names are so important in the Yoruba language. And for me, Ori is not just Ori. It doesn't just mean head. There's a metaphysical meaning to it. And I've always tried to explain what this metaphysical meaning is. I'm not certain that I always get it right. So for me, I describe it as Ori is not just head. I've said that. Ori is your destiny. It is an energy. It is, I always say, when my mom talks about Ori, it is not just as a head. And there are little things when she talks about her head, Ori, that makes you realize it's not just head she's talking about. She doesn't let anybody just touch her head. Her head is sacred. I want you to maybe explain in a better way how the Yorubas view Ori and that dual meaning.
Okay. It's complex, but also very simple, in the sense that you can be looking at somebody who is obviously beautiful, and you can say, "Ori eti baje." I mean, you're looking at the person's head. The head is okay. It's in shape. Everything is well placed. And you're saying, "Ori eburu," which is the exact opposite of what you're looking at. So it means you're not talking about the physical one you're saying. Because Ori eti baje is saying, literally, your head is damaged. Your head is spoiled. But the head you're looking at is intact.
Yes.
So that already lets you know that the Ori we are talking about there is the inner one. In Yoruba land, we believe that there are two kinds of Ori. There is Ori Ode and Ori Inu, which means the outer head and the inner head. And that is why we say things like Kiori Numa Bato Dije. The inner head should not spoil the outer one. So we believe that you are like this today because there is a spiritual version of you. So you have this head today and it's functioning well because there's a spiritual one. So when we say things like Ori Yomi, that is, my head saved me. That head there is not this one.
Yes.
So this one is representing the inner one. Yeah, it's a bit very complex in the sense that, because that is why human beings have Oriki,
Very clear, yeah.
But it isn't just human beings that have Oriki. Places have Oriki, animals have Oriki. Objects have Oriki. Because generally we just believe that for anything to exist physically, it already has existed spiritually. So everything has an Ori, in the sense that everything has its own spiritual alter ego. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. But basically, that is what it is. Ori, the concept of Ori in Yoruba land is so serious that it is even worshipped as a deity. You go to some shrines, literally any shrine owned by a Yoruba man, he will have his own Ori, decorated with cowries and all that. A specified number of cowries should be used depending on what the person wants to achieve. Everybody has their own Ori. And in that Ori, there are two, but you see an outer one, but inside it, there's another smaller one, which that outer one is covering. So just to symbolize the Ori Ode and the Ori Inu, the outer head and the inner head. So as we go on, we press deep into the whole thing. So
fantastic. No, fantastic.
One.
But safe to say that it is true. Ori doesn't just mean the outer physical head that you can see.
Ori is destiny.
Yeah.
Ori is your fate. Yeah. So when we say somebody is an Olorire, a fortunate person, somebody who has a good head, it means the person's destiny is positive, the person's destiny is good. You understand? So that word Ori, there's a sense in which it can be used for surface. Like when we say Ori Tabili, in that sense, you're not talking about the head of the table. You're talking about the surface of the table. So there's instances where we have to make certain distinctions. But in the context in which we are discussing now, Ori is not just your head. Yeah. There's an Ori that means your head. Okay, when I say that Ori Ewokpe, meaning your head is not correct. In that sense, I'm talking about your mental faculties. I'm not talking about anything metaphysical. Anything. I'm talking about your brain. So we can use Ori for the brain. We can use it for your head. We can use it for your destiny.
So I think it's safe to say that the naming convention and even names in the Yoruba language and probably many other African languages is really, really important.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. It's really important. And even probably that is one of the reasons why even the naming ceremonies is a big deal. We have naming ceremonies. Unlike many, I'm just trying to think if the English culture has a naming ceremonies.
Not that I can think
Not
of.
that I can
no,
think
not
of.
in a non sort of religious concept. And even if we were to think about Christianity, modern day Christianity, you don't have a naming ceremony. You may have a christening or a baptism where the child's name is mentioned, but not a naming ceremony.
But not that ceremony. What is the importance of and I'm leading somewhere, but how important is name to culturally amongst the Yoruba people?
Well, I think is literally one of the most important things for the Yoruba, because we believe that oruko omo ni romo, meaning a child will live up to the meaning of its name.
Right.
You understand? What a child does, a child's name has a great influence on what that child is going to become eventually. So that's why we place a huge importance and significance on the naming of a child. In fact, what you see on the naming, on the day of the naming ceremony is the grand finale. There are things that must have been done since the day the child is born, each day. And it's so serious that in the sense, okay, for instance, if the child is a male, the day on which the child is going to be named is different from the day on which a female child is going to be named.
Do you know a lot of people don't know that anymore? So everybody says, I'll ask Funmi, how many days do we name the children after?
I can't remember the difference, but I know that the boys are named on is it the 7th day?
The boys are, the way it's supposed to be, the boys are to be named on the 9th day.
Okay.
The females on the 7th day. But now everybody
does on the 7th day.
I always knew it was two different.
And I don't,
linked to numbers.
And that is so, and what is the significance of those numbers? Do you know?
Yes, because for the male child, because we do akosejaye for children when they are born. Akosejaye is like, asking Ifa about this child. This is it. We believe in Yoruba land that we came here from a different world. So we were existing somewhere. We were actually living there. And then we came here. And then we're going to live here and then go to another world.
Oh, another world.
So it's a circle. So there is the world of the unborn, there is the world of the living, and the world of the ancestors. That is why Yorubas pray to their parents. And it's not unique to Yoruba. It's something found all over Africa.
In fact, it is now the new age spirituality that is taking the world by storm believes exactly that we've existed before, we're here now, but we're going somewhere else.
So when you die, it doesn't matter at what age you have automatically become an ancestor. So I can pray to, if I have someone younger than me who is a family member and is dead, and I can pray to that person, even though the person was younger than me when they were here. Because Yoruba will say, "Eni not ifi kushagba mi." The person has now become my senior in death.
Yes.
You get that now. So we're coming from a world, and in that world, there is a way we lived our lives. That's why we have things like Egbe and Abiku and what Abiku are children who are believed to have been born simply to die. And Yoruba doesn't really see it as negative. They just see it as these children. Although many of these things I'm talking about now could be as a result of their limited scientific knowledge in those days.
Of course.
Many of these things, but not in entirety.
Yes.
Okay, so for the male child, it is believed that the male child has more responsibilities than the female child in some aspects. The male child, because we're talking about a patriarchal society here.
Absolutely.
So the male child is supposed to be, we're supposed to spend more time preparing the child for what is coming. So 2 days extra.
2 days extra for the male.
for the male and then for the because of the rituals. The akosejaye of a male child takes more than a day.
Right.
But for a female child, it could be done in just a day.
Right.
Understand? So just 7 days for the male, 9 days for the male child, 7 days for the female child.
Fabulous. Do you know what? Before we go on, it just occurred to me, a lot of people are going to want to know your background and why and how you became so interested in this. And you please, Funmi, Tayo, feel free to ask me questions. Let's just have a really great conversation around this. But especially because your mother is from Togo, completely different country. What is the interest? What is some of your background? We're curious. Where were you born? How did you grow up? Why did you become interested in this area?
As to why I became so interested in it, I actually don't have an answer. I just know that I'm interested in it. And that's why it's interesting, because I can't say this is the exact reason. It's just inborn. I just grew up loving this thing. But then my environment would have sort of influenced that, because, okay, I was born in Ajegunle here in Lagos. And Ajegunle is not a place where proper Yoruba is spoken like that. Right. So, but then at 14, I had the opportunity of living in Ajegunle and staying with my grandmother. That's in Osun State, in Nisha. That's my hometown there, in Nisha, not too far from Oshogbo.
Right.
So that's where I lived. Now, that was a different world entirely. Wow. For somebody who has been born and bred in Lagos, that was everything they did were, I was it was as though I was in a strange land, because the Yoruba they spoke, I had never heard it before. People laughed at me when I spoke the Yoruba language. Why are you speaking like this? Because the kind of...
Like you were a foreigner or something.
So... And you see kids speaking in proverbs, and they are doing it so, they are not even struggling to do it and all that. And a lot of the things we have seen in Nollywood, because I grew up watching Kotoaye and Onya Oshogbo and a lot of all these films.
Yes.
So a lot of those things we've looked at as things that are not even practiced at all. Because normally most people actually believe, it's hard for many people to believe that the Yoruba culture, the Yoruba religion is still being practiced by some people.
Yes.
But then I got to this place and it was the norm. Yeah. And you go to somebody's house, you just see a shrine as though it meant nothing. And I was shocked. I thought these were things people were ashamed of. I thought these were things nobody wanted to associate themselves with. My grandmother was Yoruba. I was staying with her. She was Muslim.
Yes.
But most of the people in their own generation, Christianity or Islam never stopped them from practicing the
traditional religion.
They would say that Imole Onikama Shoro. That is
I've
Islam.
Heard that before.
Islam has not. Islam and both of them can work hand in hand. Yes. They don't. So my grandmother never missed Salat, for instance. She was a very devout Muslim. But then when matters got to her head, she always called for Yanifa, and then I saw a babalawo, doing all those things, and I used to see these things on screen. And then I'm seeing it real life.
So babalawo is what would be like
an Ifa priest.
An Ifa priest.
We have an Yanifa, who is the female version.
So an Ifa priestess.
Babalawo, the father of an awo. Awo in Yoruba land just means something hidden. Something that needs investigation, something that is a bit deep. That's just awo. And it can be used for secrets. You get it? So that's just, in Indonesia, I was seeing a lot of all these things. I saw people, and I loved, it was in Indonesia that I knew that I loved masquerade, because they had a lot of masquerades there. Wow. And they had times when they did Odun Egun, the Egungun festival. Egungun is masquerade. So, a lot of these things, I never at any point consciously decided to pick an interest in these things. I just discovered I was loving it as I was growing up. And my parents, because I was staying with my grandmother, my father used to come from time to time, my uncle, they never discouraged us. We were still Muslim. And the kind of person my father is, my uncle, they could be listening to a song and then they would just pause the song there and say, okay, the proverb mentioned there, can you complete it? Wow. They always made us feel bad for not being able to speak the Yoruba language. Wow. And my grandmother, I think I'm one of the very few people in my generation who had the privilege of being gathered as children for tales, for alo. It is now that I'm discovering that so many people who are my age mates never had that.
How old are you? How old are you?
I'm just 29.
Okay, I had that. Okay, your age, I had that.
So his generation.
Your generation,
So alo is what? A story?
Yes, folk tales.
Okay,
moonlight tales and stuff like that. So, okay, you
we grew up with Tales by Moonlight. And my mom will, like when they take the light, when NEPA takes the light, you bring out the mat on the veranda. And I grew up in Festac. I grew up in Lagos. Wow. The mat will be out on the veranda and my mom will start telling us stories and folk tales.
So a lot of what you shared actually some of it resonates with me. So I was born in England, but at the age of 6, found myself in Ikutedo in Ibadan. If anybody knows Ikutedo, it doesn't come more rural. It doesn't come more. You know, these days people say trenches.
That's trenches.
That is the trenches. I learned Yoruba in 3 months, my mom says.
Wow.
Like 3 months flat, I learned Yoruba and I remained fluent. But I think, like you, I have a natural interest in the language. I have a natural interest in the culture.
It's always difficult to explain.
It's difficult to explain why. But now I think my interest is actually a little bit more deeper because I don't just see Yoruba as a language or a culture, and I don't really know much about the spiritual aspect, but I definitely see it as a philosophy even. So my interest, like yours, I can't. But you see what you described, telling stories, we did that. Like we would, you see what you said where they take
The light.
There was never light. In Ikotedo, full stop. There was just never light. So in the evenings, we would sit outside and we would tell, but we told stories. And I was the chief storyteller.
Of course you were.
So when people say, oh, Titi, you know how to write, I always say, no, I don't know how to write. I just know how to tell a story.
Stories.
I've had to learn how to write. But what is more interesting to me is telling the story. But yeah, so there's some similarities.
I think for me as well, it was the fact that every story had some kind of song related to it.
Which is why they were called Akpagbe.
Oh, okay. So
didn't know that.
what does
We had
Agbagbe mean?
two kinds of alo.
Okay.
Alo is the Yoruba word for, and when we call it, we just have to call it tales because
Yes.
There's
we have
no
to speak the
English
Because
direct.
alo means law means to twist.
Yeah.
So alo is what has been twisted, and when you look at the nature of those stories, you see that they always have a twisted structure. You always have to decode it. You always have to give it an interpretation. So we have akpamo, akpagbe. The akpamo are the riddles. The ones who say, what is this? I have 2 legs, I cannot walk, all this kind of, those are the akpamo. Akpatumo. Yes, and alote akpa, latitumo. It's a tale that has been told and has to be
Translated or interpreted.
and all
Yeah.
that. But then we have akpagbe. The gbe there is kabang.
Right.
Okay, chorus, if I'm singing and
Lifting
then
a
you're chorusing
chorus.
and then you are wanting in here.
Right.
You understand? So
Right.
that is why it must have a song in it.
Oh, right.
If it doesn't have a song in it, it's not complete.
It's not complete. Amazing, 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 amazing. I think we've touched on naming conventions. We've touched on a little bit on spirituality, which I want us to kind of delve in a little bit more. But before we move on from naming, what is your take on people playfully changing the spelling of their Yoruba names they would say so that you can pronounce it. So I've seen people on Instagram put Lola is their name. They put an R there. So it's Lola. You've seen things like that. I'll be very honest. I find it very concerning because I think that without realizing, you're actually changing and damaging a language.
Yeah.
And I think that you can see that in certain names, which has now become the convention. Like, I think it's horrific that people that bear Shola put an H.
An H.
And people that bear Shade
or
put an H. Have you thought about that?
It is appalling because a Chinese has never changed the spelling of its name so that other people can pronounce it well. A Russian has never changed the spelling of his name so that other people can pronounce it well. So why do you as a black man feel you need to change your name because you want certain people to be able to pronounce the name? On that ground is already flawed. And if you can, as unpronounceable as those foreign names, many of those foreign names sound, if you can try to pronounce them well, why shouldn't they be able to pronounce their own names well? And how difficult are these names to pronounce anyway? Yeah. That you think you have to change the spelling because you want them to be pronounced properly.
Yeah.
We don't, the Yoruba language is spelled the way it is spoken.
Yes.
The names are spelled the way. It's not like when you hear a word now, for instance, you hear the word hour in the English language now. Spelling of that, you can't just go by the way it is pronounced to
Yes.
spell it. But the Yoruba language, you just hear it and then spell it.
Absolutely.
You just see it and read it. So you can have problem with the accent or the right tonation to
Intonations.
use and all that.
Yes.
But then it's never really, you change your name, you change the spelling of your name because you want to, that's your own meaning of being too sure. That's your own idea of, stay with that. That's why you changed your name. Not because you want people to pronounce it, no.
Yeah.
It's because you feel a bit ashamed of it and then you just want to brandish it.
Yeah.
Bring it to the standard of the people you aspire to.
No, I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think a lot of people will push back. I think a lot of people will say, no, it's just a spelling thing. Or they would even say, we're just having fun. It's just...
Some people might not actually know.
That.
I think a name like using Shola and Shade, for example. So growing up,
Yes,
a lot of people spelled, like when I was in school. So if I think about it, who gave them that spelling?
but see that this is why I said it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Because Shola and Shade, I have a sister called Shade. She's gonna kill me. And my husband is called Shola. And his Shola is spelled Shola. His parents spelt it like that.
Yeah.
Right? My mom spelled Shade like Shade. That is why it's dangerous. That over the years, it can then take on that new spelling, which was never its original spelling.
When that is brought into the Yoruba language, it loses its meaning.
Absolutely.
Because in Yoruba language, two consonants don't even follow themselves.
Follow each other.
You get that now. So it's damaging.
It's damaging to the language.
Yeah.
And I think I really did want to make that point, that it is damaging. And you may think that you're just having fun, but if it becomes popular and it becomes convention, then it is damaging. Let me move us on to African spirituality, which is probably one of the, probably the most controversial subject, which shouldn't be, but which is. A lot of people are, let me put it to you, that either a lot of people don't understand African spirituality, or they understand it and they stand against it. In your experience, you've talked about your growing up in Oshun and seeing, the shrines, and you've seen mixed religions live alongside each other. What is your take now on the perception of African spirituality, which I actually think is in a better place than it was even 15, 20 years ago? Do you agree?
Yeah, sure. Because when I decided to start doing this thing, sincerely, I had already, I prepared myself to be outrightly rejected.
Yes.
That was it. I knew, I believed I was going to be rejected. I wasn't going to be accepted by a lot of people. Yeah. I was going to be tagged diabolic and all that.
Exactly.
Yet I decided to do it because it's what I've always enjoyed and all that. I'm not an Ifa adherent. I'm not into the religion itself. And I just find it fascinating and beautiful. And it's some people's religion, so why can't I just respect it? And then and there are so many things. The damaging thing is that we see these things as totally religion. That is why we have not paid attention to the many beautiful aspects of these things. So many people today don't care to understand what Ifa is all about because all they see in Ifa is the religion. But Ifa is a lot of things. Ifa is politics, Ifa is technology, Ifa is science, Ifa is philosophy. Religion is just one of the many things in Ifa. You get that now? But you can't blame people like that because it is a colonial design. You get it now? You can't blame a lot of people. I have met 70-year-olds who don't know the meanings of their names. 70-year-olds in Yoruba land. That is when you know that, okay, and these are people who actually want to know. So it's a damage, it's a really, really damaging thing, what colonialism did. But I
think it will probably be a bit unfair to blame it all on colonialism because as you were speaking, I'm a huge Nollywood fan. and nothing against Nollywood, but I actually grew up watching Yoruba movies predominantly. So the Abedogunde that you mentioned, all these Fade Yoloro stories, and those stories, as interesting and as beautiful as a lot of them were, there was a slight angle towards the fact that things like going to see Ifa or seeking counsel, there was more emphasis on it being diabolical than being a way of life or a way of seeking counsel, or perhaps the traditions of the people, like you said, politics. So I think we as a people have also misrepresented ourselves.
Because yes, that's very, very true. You understand? But then a lot of it still owes to,
It is
still
linked.
sourced from
We talked about conditioning and all
because
that.
look at the way we have now made, or we've darkened the meaning of issue in the minds of everybody Black or everybody Yoruba now. Issue is Satan.
Yes.
To 70% of all Yorubas now. Only the few enlightened ones know the
that
truth.
issue is not Satan.
Yeah, so
let's talk about that a little bit. But sorry, before we talk about that, I kind of want to come back to a point that you made. You made about but I think it's more linked to colonization than anything.
Definitely.
And I'll tell you why, because some of those writers, they were writing about those stories, but they were coming from
the angles of
angles
most of them were missionaries. Most of them were converted Christians.
Yes. So I think a lot of that leans towards that. But you were talking about issue there, which, many Yoruba people would say is the devil.
Yeah.
Explain what issue really is.
We first have to understand that in the Yoruba cosmology, we don't have a devil.
Right.
So we couldn't have had a word for what we never had. We don't have the devil. There's no an antagonist of God.
Right.
In the Yoruba.
Right.
And that's why we don't have things like paradise or hellfire or hell in Yoruba cosmology.
That's really interesting.
So when you understand that, it will make sense that Eshu, which existed centuries before the people came in contact with Christianity, you would understand that this Eshu could never have been the devil in Christianity. If you had a religion that believes in something entirely different from another people's religion, then it's difficult to just try to bring a parallel between. And then, every Yorubanization of Greek words or Hebrew words are always very when Jesus becomes Jesu, it's clear.
Yes.
We know that Jesu is imitating Jesus. We know that Peteru is imitating Peter.
Yes.
We know that Anderu is imitating Andrew.
Or Joannu.
So what is Eshu imitating in the Hebrew language or the Greek language? That's where you know that something
Could
has
it be
gone
maybe
wrong.
The characteristics of
Eshu? Okay, they found it similar with that. It's because the thing is, they did it in Igbo land too. They turned Ekwensu to the devil.
Right.
There. The white man needed to. In fact, that was the only way. If it was me, it was the same thing I would have done. I want to sell my religion to you. Then I need to make yours bad. I need to make yours unattractive so that you can see mine. And this is a religion that talks about salvation. So you have to first be damned before you can believe you have to first believe you are damned before you can believe you need saving.
Right.
If you don't believe you are in danger, then you won't believe you need any saving. So for Christianity, for the gospel to be accepted, people must first believe that they are in a precarious situation.
Right.
That they need to be saved from damnation.
Right.
And how would they do that? Is by letting them know that there is a devil. And this devil, they look at the Orisha in Yoruba land, they find that there is one that is a bit too temperamental. There's one that the people don't put inside their house, they put it at the doorstep because of his anger issues. There's one that they have noticed that, this one, everybody always offers sacrifices to him because he could just decide to, that is the devil. And then they just turned Eshu to the devil like that. But if Eshu was bad, and if Eshu was an enemy of God, because the devil is an enemy of God. The devil is the antagonist of God.
Yes.
Now, the Yoruba people won't give birth to children and include Eshu in the name of their children.
That's true.
You won't have Eshu Biyi. You won't have Eshu Bumi, Eshu Funke.
That's true.
It's like the Babalawo will not
That's
have a
true.
shoe. They won't offer sacrifices to a shoe. And in
That's
Yoruba
true.
land, all Orisha are supposed to be mediums through which you can
To
reach
God.
the
So there would never
Olodumare.
have been that part. You should never be able to reach God through a shoe if
it
a shoe was the devil. I
So
get
you
that.
need to now sit down and understand issue. And what
Right.
issue is. You have to understand how the Yoruba people see life.
Yes.
There are so many things that a lot of people see as negative that Yoruba don't necessarily see as negative.
Tell us some of those.
Like death.
Death. I was literally
For
going to say
instance.
death.
Yes.
Like death, for instance. Like the existence of evil. The Yoruba we say that tibitire la dale aye,
Both.
you know,
So
the
both-
negative and the positive. The negative and the positive complement themselves. So one is not necessarily bad while the other is good. They just exist. It's just the way it is. And so, and when you look at it, really, that's just the way it is.
But you know what? That is what New Age spirituality tells us, that we should stop labeling certain experiences as bad or good, that it is just what it is.
It's just
and
the
it
way
is
it
our
is.
own response that makes us suffer. That it is
Exactly.
because it is just
Exactly,
what it
but
is.
because look at the Abiku, for instance. Abiku children are a group of the heavenly children who live. We have Emere, we have Egbere, we have Aje, Abiku. I said Aje, Abiku, and Egbe, and all that. So the Yoruba people don't necessarily see Abiku as negative. They just believe that the kind of people that these children are, they just want to come to the world, experience it for some time, and
leave.
go. They are not
So
ready
the
to
literal
commit.
meaning of Abiku is
Born to die.
So why did films and programs depict the fact that when a child is called, like the parents will be going to the Ifa priest or whatever to say they don't want that child to
Abiku.
go?
Because nobody wants an Abiku.
Because our human feelings
thing
then
is,
come into
exactly,
it.
because we are humans.
Yes.
We don't want Abiku. That doesn't mean Abiku is bad. But because we are emotional beings, I don't
We
want
want
to
them
give
to
birth to a
stay.
child and what my child die after some time. So we don't want them. They are not, the fact that it is not bad doesn't really mean it is pleasant or a pleasant experience or something.
Yes.
You know, it's not bad, it's not good, it just exists. But we don't want it. You get, so, and it takes us back to that saying, Tibitire la dale aye, that this world is not complete if it is 100% good. It's not complete if it's 100% bad. The both of them exist hand in hand.
Yeah.
But there won't be light if there is no darkness. There won't be darkness without light. For light to exist, there must be something called darkness.
Yes.
You know, for the good to exist, there must have been something called bad.
Yes.
If everything was good, how would you know what is bad? So it's just a very wholesome way of looking at the universe. Okay, every of these things just exist. And when you look at it, everybody experiences life the same way, whether you're a Muslim or a Christian or at the end of the day, we really experience life the same way.
We have the ups, we
bad
have the
things don't
lows.
really choose who they happen to.
Yes,
Good
that's
things
true.
don't really choose, irrespective of what you practice.
Good things happen
your
to bad
religion.
people,
Good
bad things happen to...
So at the end of the day, it makes sense that we're living in a world that is bigger than us. You know, we are just trying to understand it. And a lot of these things, a lot of our, what we have been able to come up with are just things we've been able to, try to interpret. At the end of the day, it is way, way bigger than us.
Yeah.
So I have a quick question. So when Yoruba people say kadara, I thought that shows that there is an expectation that you want life to go in a particular way. Could you actually give us the actual interpretation of kadara?
Okay, so let's start with the fact that kadara is not a Yoruba word.
See? This is Yoruba 101.
It isn't a Yoruba word.
Okay.
A lot of anfani is not a Yoruba word.
wow.
Okay.
Alafia,
Yeah.
idamu.
Oh, really?
These are not wahala.
It's not Yoruba
These
word.
are not Yoruba
See, I
words.
knew Wahala wasn't, but I didn't know where it came. But kadara, I literally grew up hearing that word in almost any program or movie.
Kadara is Arabic.
Okay.
It's not Yoruba word. What we have is anyomo.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Anyomo, yon is to choose, to
choose.
select. Mo is with. So anyomo, what you have chosen with you. Because we believe again that you're coming from somewhere, and when you were coming here, you chose the kind of life you're going to live.
So what is the interpretation that kadara is being given wrongly in the Yoruba concept, like when we use it in Yoruba language?
Okay. The thing is, Yoruba the Yoruba cosmology is one that deals with balance a lot. You must understand balance when you want to really understand the Yoruba. Because now we say that Anyomo Ogbogun, Orilelejo, that is, your destiny has no antidotes. Okay.
Right.
What is going to be will be. You understand? There is no change to it.
Right.
Yet, Ifa is called Atunore Enitu Osunwonse. That is, he will repairs the destiny of someone who has selected a bad destiny. Now, those are two contradictory
positions.
That's when you have to. It's like when we say that.
That's why I call it a philosophy.
It's like when you say that Ishekolowo, that is, the amount of work you do doesn't really equate to the amount of money you're going to have. Yet to say something like Ishelogun. That if you don't work, you'll be poor.
Yes.
It's for you to now arrive at a balance where, okay, you understand the fact that I'm not going to become so rich because I work so hard, and still knowing that I can't get rich without working hard.
Yes.
You have to arrive at that balance. So you have to understand the fact that this life, there's something called fate, right? It's bound to happen. This is your destiny and all that. At the same time, knowing that you can actually influence your own destiny.
Yes.
You say that owo la fin tun ori ara eni se.
Right.
With your own hand, you with your own hand repair your own destiny. So you have to just arrive at. There are not contradictions. Just for you to arrive at the balance, find the balance in those things. It's
amazing.
A very interesting
It
thing.
is a very, very interesting language. What do you think we lose from completely turning away from that spiritual aspect or throwing everything out?
We're losing ourselves.
Right.
Sincerely, we're losing ourselves. We've so many things that are very... And, we're talking about naming. In Yoruba land, the naming system is designed in such a way that you can, just by listening to somebody's name, just two of their names, you can tell who they are, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, historically. You can talk about them. The way we give names in Yoruba land is very unique, and it's unique to Yoruba. This one is unique to the Yoruba. We have mainly 4 categories of names that we give to people. We have Abiso, which are the ones we bear regularly, like Temitayo, like Toby, like Titi. Those are Abiso names. Abiso, the name you give to your child when you born them. B is to born, so to give a name. So the name you have given to your child, that is you.
Yeah.
Then we have Amoto Onwa, the one brought from heaven. And that is always determined by the kind of birth you had.
Right.
The circumstances surrounding your birth. Did you come with your leg instead of your head? Did you come facing downwards? Did you come as a twin? Did you come with the umbilical cord around your neck or around your wrist? So for each of those scenarios, there is a name. If you are a twin, the first one is Taiwo, the second one is Kainde. We do that. That's Amutonra, the Ojo, I know, and all that. Ige. So and then we have Oriki.
Yes.
Oriki is now the name we give to you depending on what we have seen in your Ori. Because every child in those days, we must first do Akosejaye. Akosejaye is what we guide, like a guideline for the parents, how to train this child. Because we believe this child has a life where it's coming from. So who is this child? Or what has he come here to do? You understand? Which is the meaning of that word, Omo. But that's a different... I don't want to digress.
So the Akosejaye, is that a ceremony that is performed or like an inquiry that is done?
It's an inquiry.
Okay.
It's a divination, a kind of consulting a babalawo, an Ifa priest. You consult Ifa and then you ask, who is this child? Which Odu is this child associated with? Odu is the codes of Ifa, which we have. We have hundreds of Odu, 256 in all. So each and every one of them has what they talk about about life, about character, about whatever. They are based on a lot of different things. So Yoruba believe that every human being has an Odu that is associated with you. And so that's going to guide the parents. They will understand that Odu and say, okay, this is going to guide us on how we are to train this child.
I love that so much because it speaks to even some modern parenting beliefs around you're not here to mold a child into what you want that child to be. A child has come with
what the child wants to do.
Yes, with what the child wants to be.
You're just to guide the child
into their own
So that is why we consult Ifa before we even go about the naming of the child at all. So it is the Akosejayi that will guide us into, okay, what kind of name do we give to this child? What kind of Oriki do we give to this child? And then we have Orile. It's a name too. This one is like our own version of surnames.
Surnames, okay.
Orile. It's always attached to the Oriki. You find some people who are Jadi Ogbo. You see Abike Asha, Ajoke Okin. Yeah, exactly. You see something like Ajadi Ekun. The Ekun, Ogbo, Okin, those are the Orile.
Okay.
That one is born by everybody born into that family.
Okay.
So wherever you go, after saying, okay, I am Temitayo, Ajadi, Ogbo, or Temitayo, Omokende, Ajadi, Ogbo, whoever you mention that to in the Yoruba land, nobody can have those four names.
Exactly
like that. So they know who you are.
Yes.
They know where you're from. They know who your father is. They know everything about you just by mentioning those names.
Identity.
If you are confused, just give them your Oriki. And then they just, Omo Aresekere, Omo Arori. I don't know how to translate this one. So, when you list all those things, you know who you are and all that.
Yeah.
You get that? So now we have women get married and they change their names to the names of their husbands. That is not Yoruba.
I've heard that before. I've heard that
in Yoruba land.
But I did not, I only heard it recently. It's not as if I've always known.
In fact, mainly most African cultures don't change. The females don't change names.
That is colonized.
Because I think I heard it.
It's a Western.
Yeah, Ghanaians. I heard it because I know quite a number of Ghanaians, and I don't know which tribe exactly, and I stand corrected, but they don't change their names like the females. I don't know if it still exists. And I remember then, I don't know whether I researched it, I just asked, and they're like, yeah, historically, Yoruba women didn't particularly take on.
Because your name is supposed to be something, your identity.
Titi.
By the time you have changed that and then you are bearing somebody else's name, it becomes difficult to trace you. You can't mention your name to a stranger now and they will trace you to your father. Because there has been a distortion in the...
That is really interesting though, because a lot of people will be hearing this for the first time. And a lot of people think that it is our culture and that you are actually going against the culture when you don't change your name. And that you're trying to be feminist when you don't change your name. We've culturally, historically, we never did that.
Yeah.
That is really fascinating.
So that's one of the effects of what you're talking about. We're losing ourselves. You understand? And because we see everything in the Yoruba, everything the Yoruba said, we see it as, okay, it's just some people's religion. We have seen it as more of religion than culture.
Yes.
So we don't want to associate. Look at what so many practices that have been demonized today, like Ikomo, like naming a child on so day and all that. Or, for instance, in Yoruba land, when a child is born, that child is not supposed to step out until after certain number of days.
Yeah.
And that is purely what they do in pediatrics and all these things. It's purely scientific. It's dangerous to launch a newly born child
into the environment.
The child is still weak.
Yeah.
The immune system is still not developed. All those kind of things.
Yeah.
And that means these people understood what they were doing. They knew what they were doing when they said, when they gave a number. Okay, and a pregnant woman should not be seen walking about in the sun. Yeah. That is an AWO in Yoruba land. But when you go into science, you see that these things actually make sense.
It's so funny. We went to the passport office and we saw a heavily pregnant woman. And Funmi automatically said, oh, go and sit down somewhere.
Under the shade.
And I said, why? It's pregnancy and disease. Let the woman walk. But
I didn't even realize that. Now that you've mentioned it,
it doesn't mean she should be inactive, but
just not in the sun, under the shade.
Yes.
To public places and those things. For a lot of people now today they are religious. Religious rules and rights, and these are not religious. This is just how it should be. You understand? So, by seeing everything as totally religion, for instance, now, if I saw, whenever I read Ifa, and sincerely, I'm always blown away. I'm always like, who came up with this thing? This is too intelligent. A lot of what we have in those things are very, very intelligent. A lot of them are accurately prophetic. A lot of them have you just are blown away. And all our proverbs, all our idioms are sourced from
that. So if we then want to throw away because we believe that it's diabolical, demonic, if we throw that away, then we lose not just who we are, we actually lose a lot of even science.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. So these things are rich. Ifa, for instance, now it's based on binary. I'm talking about Ifa is centuries of years old. Thousands of years old. Ifa is based on binary. Ifa is based on the exact technology that was used to develop the computer. Exactly.
Exactly.
How exactly it is. And this was, brought to us by an Orunmila. The Orunmila now that everybody now see as some deity, some god. But this was a man that existed. This was a proper philosopher that had disciples that taught. And these were his words. He came up with the Okpele. The Okpele is simply how to, document with that string. In that string, you have the documentation of hundreds of Odu, just by, casting it, and then whichever appears reminds you. He has used it to catalog his knowledge about the universe. Orunmila knew so many things. And then Ifa is his way of documenting all of those things. Right. So whatever you're looking for is there because it's talking about life. So in life, there is religion in life.
Yes.
There's politics. There's marriage. Yes. There's everything. It's just. But when you have now seen everything which takes us back to colonialism. It was colonialism that made all these things look, diabolic and so bad. And that is why so many people today don't want to. So I'm always very careful when I blame people, but you have to still blame people. You have to come upon them very hard.
Because it even affects our art.
It affects...
I held an art piece the other day and somebody made a comment that I just knew came from a very religious point of view. Which was around putting it away and my heart sank a bit because it was a beautiful art piece.
What was it?
It was a head.
Okay.
So that's similar to the heads that you will see in Benin and I knew that person was likening it to an idol. But this is
now because all the person sees is this represents a particular religion. So the person is blind. The person has become blind to, the artistic qualities of what he's looking at.
Absolutely.
He's not seeing the thing as first an art before
anything else.
Yeah. And so it's
which is a shame.
A lot of things, really.
I say it's a shame. Funmi, do you offer any other kind of thoughts?
Because obviously at the core of all of this is identity. I have to agree with you because how do you take over a group of people? You strip them of their identity. So colonialism basically was aiming to do that. Strip people of their identity or tell them that their identity is not good or it's evil. So yes, I think a lot of us have been conditioned in a particular way, and it's important that we, are self-aware of conditioning. I grew up in a home that was fully Yoruba, both parents Yoruba, one from Oyo, one from Ondo. I grew up speaking Yoruba before I started school. So Yoruba was actually my first language. So a lot of these things growing up, watching it, whether it's watching it on TV or reading books, I think it's, as a young child, the diabolical aspect of it wasn't that prominent. It was as I got older that you think more about the diabolical aspect that people have attached to it. But it's important to obviously also understand that religion and perhaps what we want to call the Yoruba philosophy are two different things.
So we've lost our identity so much that somebody who bears Obafemi today thinks the Oba in his name now refers to Jesus.
But isn't that king? Like that could be...
Yeah, he actually thinks the Oba in his name refers to king, and then since God is our king. You understand?
Okay.
But then...
Obafemi is not a Christian name.
Obafemi is not a Christian name. People bought Obafemi in Yoruba land, centuries before they came in contact with
Christianity.
So and people, those who are born in royal families don't have Oba in their name. Yes. They have Adi in their name.
Crown.
So what is the Oba there? It couldn't have been talking about a king, a political king or this thing there. So
absolutely.
that is a name born strictly by Shopono devotees. Because
they called Shopono Oba.
Shopono is Obaluaye. Shopono is many things. Shopono is because that deity is one of the most dreaded deities in Yoruba land.
Yes, it is. Which even the name is like Shopono.
It brings us back to naming. We believe that when you call the name of something, you are kind of motivating that thing to do what it knows how to do best. When your mother wants to kind of get maybe she wants to extract a promise from you or something, she calls you a name she rarely calls you. Or she calls your name in full.
Yeah.
You get that?
If you're in trouble.
Yeah, because we believe that it's either you're in trouble or she wants you to do something for her or something. So we believe that calling something by its name, when if you want to say that death, I have power over you, so you can't harm me, we'll say something like Momoru Koti Kunje.
Right.
Like I know the name that death bears. The very figurative way of speaking. We believe that when you know something, when you know the name of something and you call that name, then you are going to motivate or invoke the thing to act or to do what it knows how to do best. Yeah. Which is why Shopono is not always called Shopono. Because they believe that that is the name that gets it into, that puts it in its element and all that. So they now came up with other names, other differential names for the deity. So Shopono is now called Babaluaye. It's called Obaluaye. It's called Shagbarigi. It's called Babagba. It's called Omoolu. So Olumide is not Oluwa. The Olu there is Shopono. Then when you say Baba Funke, that Baba is Shopono, Babaluaye. Although there are other senses in which the Baba can mean your grandfather. When you say Baba Tunde or Baba Jide and all that. But because of all these things we're talking about, somebody who bears Obashola today doesn't even know that the root of that name is in the Shopono movement.
No, that's true.
And people who understood that now changed it entirely because they don't want to have anything to do with Shopono. Shopono is now being. I did something on Shopono recently, sometime around late last year, and it shook a lot of people were just surprised that
it triggered people.
So because the Shopono was a movement of vaccination, controlling epidemic diseases, because Shopono was the deity in charge of contagion. So it had a guild, kind of people who belonged in an association of how to contain these. We came up with. We were vaccinating ourselves. What we called bere, when somebody. These were.
Can you explain that a little bit, like what that was? Because it's incisions on the body.
Incisions are made on your body, and then some unguents are used, which actually penetrate into your bloodstream. People used bere to cure Shopono in those days. Shopono was smallpox. Smallpox. So, and how did they do it? They would get scrapings from the body of someone who has been infected with smallpox, and from there they extract the antidote, and then they introduce that.
That's basically a vaccine.
That thing into the bloodstream of someone who has smallpox. Our people knew these for centuries of years ago before they came in contact with any white man.
In fact,
it was our people who introduced it. Go read about Onisemus and how they came and they developed the vaccination for smallpox in Boston. It was a slave. It was a black slave here. If we check the history of that black slave properly, you may even trace him to Yoruba land or West Africa. Because this was an area where the knowledge of Shopono was very widespread.
Wow!
So we introduced it to them over there. This is pure history. It's all over. It's all over the place. You get it now. We understood some things. We knew some things.
And that is the danger, though. That exactly what we've been saying. That when you throw you shouldn't throw the baby out with the water, right? That when you throw everything away, you lose medicine.
Yeah. Because the people who came up with that people who understood that you could get vaccine from somebody who has the disease. If all they had in their mind was religion, how would they have been able to arrive at such a scientific feat? How would they have been able to come? They knew that it was a scientific movement. But because they are inherently religious, like every other person in the world, you are going to find them do what they do religiously.
Absolutely.
You understand? They're going to interpret them religiously. They're going to interpret some things religiously that are not necessarily religious. But at the end of the day, what they are doing is scientific.
Absolutely.
The same way you read about the Jews, and a lot of the things they have, they do religiously are just things that should be done anyway by human beings, wherever. But because we as human beings, we're actually born religious. By nature, a human being is supposed to be religious. We are born to believe in something higher than us.
Higher than
we are
you.
born to believe in needing help from, something bigger than us. It's just the way it is. You always have to re-engineer yourself to not be religious. Nobody is born not religious.
Right.
If you were raised in isolation, you would have grown up religious. It's the way, it's just the human nature.
Really
so that
interesting.
explains why, you see the religious things that they do and all that, but really what they are doing is mainly scientific.
Fantastic.
Because if there was no scientific knowledge, if they were not consciously being scientific, they would never have been able to. They would have been sacrificing to the deities to cure them. They would never have, decided to let's put incisions,
take
let's
some
do these things
actual actions.
Now, religiously, they may say, put this number of these incisions. It must be this number. It must be that. All those ones are not. What matters is the incision that they are doing.
But it's interesting now that people now link the incisions with diabolic rituals.
Which,
as opposed because they don't understand.
Because they don't understand.
Right. Or maybe somewhere along the line somebody has introduced that concept.
Or maybe they have now come in contact many times with the ones who use it for the wrong things.
Yes.
Because just as we have these things, it was just like when we're talking about Ajay, for instance, Ajay is what the English people would call witch.
Yeah.
Although that again is a very, very damaging translation, because what we call Ajay, they don't have it, and what they call witch, we don't have it.
Right.
These are two different worlds entirely. Because we have to speak the English language.
Right.
That's why we are forced to use those words to describe our own. Ajay in the Yoruba language means to answer.
Okay.
You say, Oruko wo lo ń jẹ́? What name do you answer to? Ẹ jẹ́ kí n lọlé, let me go home. So je means to allow something be.
Yeah.
So Ajay is one who can let things happen. Someone who has power enough to make certain things happen. The one that when we call, they answer, and they provide solutions. That is basically what Ajay means. Now, if you understand that, you will not be comfortable calling them witches, knowing that witches in those places have certain things they do that are not. These things are not. I'm trying to get them as simplified as possible. So a lot of these words carry with them the culture of where they are coming from.
Yes,
you get that now. So
I guess that's what's difficult when you're trying to either take one language and try to completely translate it. You lose meaning. I mean, people may also argue that things develop and things change. I want us to kind of talk a little bit about hair, not least because that is what our brand is about hair. How important is hair in the Yoruba culture?
Yeah, it is very, because it is linked. Irun ṣíṣe, hairdressing, is linked to the deity Oshun. Oshun, okay. Oshun, part of the Oriki of Oshun. Oshun is the Yoruba deity of purity, of love, sexuality, fertility, children, things around that. So Oshun, by profession, was a hairdresser. You get that now? And that's why in Ahoriki, you find Oshun Shengeshe Oloya Iyun. Oya is the Yoruba word for comb. Oya, something that splits, something that separates. Iyun is coral beads. Right. So Oshun so much loved her profession that she decorated her own comb with coral beads. So she's called Oloya Iyun. And we Yorubas, we believe that when you go to a hairdresser and they say, okay, this is the cost of the hair, you should never haggle. You should never bargain.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Yes, you should never bargain. Because when you bargain, it's like you will say that, oh no, you are bargaining, you are pricing your head. You place so little value on your head that you can bargain it. So
right.
It is. I'm going somewhere.
Yes, please do.
Oshun is called. Okay, we don't praise, we don't bargain our head because that's why Oshun is very prominent in the Yoruba, because by being a hairdresser, now she's seen as somebody who shapes the ori, somebody who decorates the ori. Because one of the ways of showing that you value your head is actually by keeping it clean and
absolutely,
and healthy.
Healthy. Making it beautiful, attractive. And we had a lot of very elaborate hairstyles then, especially for women, which is where the word Arewa originates.
Right.
Arewa is Araiwa, Enito Raiwa, the one who buys beauty.
Beauty.
Buys beauty.
Yeah, someone who buys it. So because when Oshun, anytime, and it still happens today, whenever Oshun was making the hair of people, passers-by would greet them by saying Ekwe wow. So you just acknowledge the fact that
The
okay, you're
beauty,
beautifying
yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
So the person who the ondiri, the person who's
stylist,
the
yes.
stylist is the one giving the beauty to the one whose head is being made.
Yes.
So that one is the one who has, because you pay. That means you
Yes.
have bought beauty.
Beauty.
So when they see you and your beautiful hairstyle, they say, "Oh, arewa, otira,
Ewa.
ewa." So the hair is actually very important, and that is why some people who came into this world with a kind of, knotted kind of hair, we see them as deities.
Locks.
Yeah,
Dada.
lords. They are seen as deities. They're actually literally worshipped
Oh, wow.
as deities. And then they would decorate the hair with money, cowries, because it was money then. So imagine somebody going about with dollars on their
hair.
That is what it was. That's what it was.
But that was
then.
only for those who had natural locks.
Yes, for those who had natural locks.
A lot of people don't know that that the Yoruba consider some people to be born with natural locks and have natural locks.
It's why would a lot of people argue with that? They don't.
Well, I guess most of us grew up seeing that. I don't know if it's popular, if it happens in the West. I don't know if that's something that
doesn't.
happens.
I don't think
you
it
wouldn't
does
meet a
happen.
Caucasian that was born
No, it's
with
only
locks.
it's our kinky hair that can.
Yeah.
Yes, but you would, even in the West, you wouldn't. I've not seen children with natural locks in the West. I've never seen any. But when we went to Idale,
Yes,
in Ogun
we
State, we saw more than two
young children
with natural locks.
Definitely.
So even some Black people don't know that we consider some people that they're born with that natural locks. That they're actually born and
their hair grows out that way.
that hair grows out that way.
That's surprising to me, because I grew up seeing a lot of children born.
Exactly. Somebody was arguing with me on Ori Lifestyle saying there is no natural locks.
There is.
And I was so taken aback because
Do you think it's not happening as often now, or people are just not cognizant of it because now everybody's familiar with locks? Because when we're growing up, they were unique.
Yes.
You didn't see it everywhere.
Yes.
So when you met somebody, I automatically assumed this person, Dadani, they were born with natural locks. Whereas now, people are styling their hair into locks. It's become bigger, more it's become fashionable. So it's no longer seen in exclusion.
But you see, where I find it troubling a little bit is because there is that knowledge gap that some people are born with natural locks. And so some people actually think it's not cultural.
Okay.
To have hair like that. That it is a Jamaican, West Indian hairstyling that Caribbean hairstyling that has been transposed into our own culture. And I think it would be educative to some of our listeners to hear that, no, actually, in our culture, there's some children that are born with locked hair and they are viewed exactly as you say.
In fact,
you couldn't cut their hair.
There's an Orisha called Banyoni.
Banyon.
Banyoni.
Banyoni.
Banyan. N-I. Banyon. No, N-N-I, because Banyon.
Ni. Yeah.
That's the name of that Orisha. That is the Orisha of Dada.
Wow.
I mean, that makes it clear that these people recognized Dada naturally. Some people were born with their hair naturally locked. And they come with that, and they are seen as, because that Bayon, in fact, when you look at the Orisha itself, the way it is designed, it has a string of cowries at the base, and just to imitate the locks and all that. And they always say Dada Oleja. Ṣùgbọ́n ó ní àbúrò tó gbójú. Dada cannot fight. It has a violent brother or something.
Yeah.
That àbúrò tó gbójú is Shango. Because they believe that the story, Dada and Bayoni are... And when you look at Shango too makes his hair...
The hairstyle.
This kind of thing. So Dada is... In the Europe, Dada is not... I mean, there are a lot of people who are born with Dada and they are venerated as deities.
Yes.
They are treated as deities. Even in their Oriki, Olowo Jigbini, things like that. Dada, Awuru, You know, in the Oriki, you find that, okay, these people are well respected. And the Ori Dada is supposed to not be touched by anybody who isn't the parent for the first certain number of years of the
Yes.
first. Then later on, as it grows up, okay, maybe a few members of the family can touch. But Dada is so sacred that nobody should just be able to come and touch.
And is there a
the hair.
ceremony when that is cut off?
There's exactly, it's, well, it depends on the family.
Okay.
And it's never really cut off because they believe that the hair has a strong link with the child's ori.
Right.
So that hair is never, you could do some ritualistic cutting and, it's never taken off totally.
Right.
But there are some that, the hair is never, just like we have the Nazarenes in the Bible, whose hair must not be touched with the blade. And some dadas are not touched at all. And some people grow up into thinking the dada is the source of their power. Like, the Samson complex thing. And so but these things are just, they depend on particular families.
Yes, okay.
And when Christianity came, so many people didn't want to have anything, they didn't want to associate themselves with anything traditional.
Right.
So they started, they started going against these things intentionally. They changed the Ogun in their names and they turned it to Oluwa. Somebody who was Ogungbemi becomes Oluwagbemi or Jesu Gbemi. Nobody who had Dada, because we have people who have Dada in their names. In fact, if you are born like that, automatically you are called Dada.
Yes.
Nobody really cares what name.
What other name you want
Dada,
to give
Dada.
Yeah.
Some people went against that, saying, no, my child is not Dada.
Yeah.
Call this because to them that Dada is linking the child to the Orisha and a lot of things. So
yes, well, that's super interesting.
So hair is a very important thing. But we believe that it has a direct connection with your head. We believe that it is the way you treat your hair reflects how you see your head.
Right.
And so when somebody is actually the Yoruba word for hairdressing is not. If you see somebody plaiting their hair now, we say that ondiri, not ondirun. Onidiri.
That's
Ori.
correct.
It is the head we are saying, not actually the hair. The hair is a part of the head. The hair is just a covering of the head. So we say ondiori. We don't say ondirun.
Right.
People say Mufelo dirun. Lenny, I want to go and plait my hair, but the actual thing is I want to go and plait my head.
Right.
So it is the head you are concerned with. So why you are doing that style, why you are making it so beautiful is your head.
Yeah.
It's reflecting how you value your head.
And I love that. That's probably the point to kind of wrap up and bring this conversation to an end. Something that you just said there is something that my mom believes very, very strongly in. It is one of the ethos of my brand. We always say this, that in the Yoruba language, your head is revered. Mm-hmm. And because your head is revered, I make sure that whatever we produce is of the topmost quality because your head should not accept anything inferior or less than. And it's something that I've always said. And I've never really made all these links in such a tight way, but it's something that I've really, really believed in.
Well, what's motivated you to use Yoruba words as Ori, Ododo, Funfun? Why?
Just as I said in the beginning, I love the culture. I love the language. I love the sense of identity that I have. And I could not think about having a brand that does not include a part of myself and a part of my culture. And so wherever possible, and just because our hair is so unique, it is the most unique texture in the world. And I don't want to ever shy away from that link to the identity that our hair has as well. So because of that, I think Ori Lifestyle, for as long as I am the founder, owner of Ori Lifestyle, I think we will always kind of nod to that culture and that heritage and that identity.
And how are non-Yorubas reacting to it? Has there been some difficulties in, getting them to identify with the
I
brand or
think
not?
they're having fun with the names. I don't think it bothers them at all. I
Okay.
think they may not have the emotional attachment to the names that I do or the Yorubas do, but it's interesting to put a name. And you know what? As we grow, we'll probably introduce one or two Igbo names, maybe even a Hausa name to nod to the culture. And then as we expand even more, maybe we'll have a Ghanaian name and so on and so, maybe even a Togolese name. But the reaction there's been no negative reaction, but that's another thing. Why should there be? We use brands like Shiseido, which is Japanese. We have Korean brands who use their names, and I use it. I don't even think about it. I don't even know the meaning. Why should I? It's great products. They work, they perform, and that's the crux of it. But it's been wonderful to have this conversation with you, Tayo. Really wonderful. Thank you, Funmi, for joining me. Thank you so much for coming. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. So we're at the end of another episode where I take a hair care question that has come in from you. So this one says, Dear Titi, what can I use on my scalp where patches are appearing? My answer is you need to see a dermatologist or trichologist as soon as possible. When you see patches appearing on your scalp, this is not the time to grab for any products that you've seen from any brand or on Instagram. This is a time to book an appointment with a trichologist or a dermatologist so that they can ascertain what's going on. And if you don't know where to even begin to find those people, please book an appointment with your doctor. Your general practitioner should be able to signpost you to the right person to assess your scalp. It is really, really important that you go early because things like this could be a number of things that can easily be addressed or can require a multidisciplinary intervention. Please go and see someone. This is not about product. This is about somebody really assessing your scalp and determining what's going on.